I'm Jen Shaw. We spend our days helping employers sort through messy workplace situations, often in real time and often with a lot on the line. On this podcast, we'll walk through those issues, what's coming up, what actually matters, where employers get into trouble, and what to do next. No theory, just practical guidance you can use. So with July 1 here, today's topic is workplace violence prevention. By now, every California employer should have a workplace violence prevention plan, mandated training, a violent incident report, and a program of how to prevent workplace violence. Of course, having a binder on a shelf is not enough to prevent a workplace violence claim. So today, I want to talk a little bit about what employers are still getting wrong, what leaders should be doing now, and how to build a workplace that is not only compliant, but genuinely safer. All right, let's start at the beginning. The California legislature passed Senate Bill 553 at the end of 2023, requiring that most California employers, there are very few exceptions, by July 1, 2024, needed to have implemented a workplace violence prevention program. The program has a number of components, including a workplace violence prevention plan. I've read so much about this and heard other people talk about it, and it bugs me because a lot of folks refer to this as just the workplace violence prevention plan. That's not what SB 553 is. That is one component. The plan is one component of the workplace violence prevention program that California employers are supposed to adopt. Now, why are employers still struggling? Well, first of all, a lot of us downloaded a template from some website. It may have been the CalOSHA website. It may have been another one. And we didn't customize it. The law requires that we create a custom document, something that reflects the actual hazards and the actual prevention strategies in our workplace. They did training that just checked a box, right? They did a video. They said, here you go, we're done, check a box. And they didn't have any discussion about it. They didn't let anybody know what the expectations were. They didn't roll it out in a way that mattered. They haven't looked at it since they initially rolled it out. So July 1, 2024 came, they rolled it out. They forgot to do it in 2025. They forgot to do it in 2026 so far. Here we are today, July 1, the deadline, and we got problems. Okay, so when we think about what SB 553 requires, I want you to understand a couple of things. First of all, generic workplace violence prevention plans are not going to work. As I said a moment ago, you've got to customize them. As part of that process, you also have to do what's called a hazard assessment. You have to look at your workplace and decide, okay, what hazards are present in this workplace and what do I need to do to try to reduce the risk of any harm coming to my employees? You also have to review it annually. Okay, July 1 is a deadline. Now, what's interesting is it's really a continuing obligation because you have to do new training when you identify a new hazard. You have to update your workplace violence prevention plan. You have to make sure you're completing your violent incident report in a timely manner. But you got to at least take once a year around July 1 to say, okay, are we on track? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? And part of that, of course, is making sure that your employees, including your supervisors, your managers, your leaders, know how to deal with workplace violence. They know how to report concerns. They know how to respond when somebody brings a concern to them. Now, one of the things that we need to talk about here right up front is that a lot of us think workplace violence is literally about active shooters. Okay, so we do active shooter training. What to do if there's an active shooter in your workplace. Now, that is a very valuable training. Do not get me wrong. But the vast, vast majority of workplace violence incidents are not those involving a gun or mass casualties or an active shooter. It's much different. When we talk about workplace violence generally, it's much like that concept of abusive conduct when you do equal employment opportunity training. Somebody who is engaging in threats and intimidation and bullying behavior. That's what we mean by workplace violence. So when you're thinking about how to define workplace violence and how to train on workplace violence, I want you to really have a more broad concept than you might have had in the past. I want you to think about this as when somebody is engaging in behavior in the workplace that makes somebody else feel threatened or intimidated, that's going to violate your workplace violence prevention policy most of the time. And as usual, that doesn't mean you have to fire anybody. It just means you have to stop the conduct and you have to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. What should you be watching for? All right. The FBI has a multi-factor analysis that they use when they're assessing situations to decide if they think somebody might move out of what we call the ideation stage when they're thinking about engaging in workplace violence and move into actually perpetrating the workplace violence. Okay, they have a number of factors. And they're things like, does the individual have a fascination with weapons? Has the individual's personality changed recently? Do they seem more withdrawn or more outgoing? Are there changes in their work performance, their attendance? All of these issues have certainly a role in evaluating whether somebody may, in fact, perpetrate workplace violence. Now, other factors you can look at are things like escalating anger. Are people making comments like, you're going to be sorry you did that? They don't have to threaten to do something specific, right? You have to think about when you let somebody go. Maybe you've eliminated a position. Maybe you had to let someone go for performance reasons. Maybe it's both. And they're upset. And of course they're upset. It's very stressful to lose their job, right? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't take the action you need to take, right? But of course they're upset. You may have customers or clients or patients who are acting out. And when you have these kinds of things going on in your workplace, you need employees who have their eyes open and are paying attention, and they will tell you when something is going on. So as an HR professional, what do I want you to do? I want you to get your leaders to encourage reporting. Make sure that everybody knows, hey, you do not tolerate retaliation when it comes to workplace violence any more than you would when it comes to equal employment opportunity complaints, right? You want your employees to speak up immediately. You will then respond immediately. You will document the situation, right? You're going to consider whether you need to take some safety measures, right? Do you need more security? Do you need a better alarm? What do you need? Do you need a better protocol? You're going to review your workplace violence prevention plan annually. And everybody's going to be trained. Everybody in the workplace is going to be trained. Now, if you have multiple things going on in your workplace, let's say you have a retail facility and you have a manufacturing facility on the same site or in the same organization, there are going to be different hazards that you're going to have to talk about for those two groups of employees. They're not going to be facing the same hazards. So you have to tailor the plan, the program, the training to your specific work environment. Now, what's interesting to me is it's not that difficult to have a compliant workplace violence prevention program. It really isn't. You get the template program from Cal OSHA. They also have other template documents like the violent incident report that you can use. You sit down with appropriate people from the organization, a couple of employees, a couple of leaders, someone from HR, someone if you have a security or safety department, and you come up with the plan, right? And then you think about what you're going to cover in the training, and you make sure you have safety protocols. It's not that tough, but I think one of the reasons people don't do this is because they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it. It's very upsetting. When I was a brand new lawyer, and actually I wasn't even a lawyer yet, I was in law school, and I was a summer associate at a law firm in downtown San Francisco. And another law firm had a very serious workplace violence incident that summer. And a number of people lost their lives. The law firm closed. It was called Pettit and Martin. And it really started a dialogue about what is workplace violence? What do we do to prevent it? And I think the California legislature in 2023, when they decided, hey, we need a law, we need more, it's because this stuff is still happening. And I have to be honest, I don't understand why weapons are so easily accessible, why we even have an option of engaging in that type of workplace violence, right? The number of school shootings we have, I just don't understand what's wrong and why we can't get this problem solved. But on this podcast, you guys, we can't solve all the world's problems. All we can do is deal with our workplace. So I want you to spend some time really looking at your workplace violence prevention program in the next week. Okay, today's July 1st. It should be 100% compliant today. My guess is it isn't, because you've been busy, you've had a lot going on, and there's no judgment there. This is a judgment-free zone. But I want you to take some time. I want you to look at what you have in place. If you've never had a workplace violence prevention program in place, you got to get one now. Google it. Figure out what you're supposed to be doing. Talk to your regular employment law counsel, whatever it takes, okay? But I want to make sure that you get something in play, because if something happens in your workplace and you do not have a compliant workplace violence prevention program, you are going to be in a world of trouble. Remember, there's all sorts of theories of liability here, right? Normally, when somebody's hurt at work, they're covered by workers' comp, right? The workers' compensation system, a no-fault system, kicks in. But there are exceptions to what we call workers' compensation exclusivity for situations where the employer has engaged in serious and willful misconduct. They knew about a risk and they just decided not to fix it. Or another way out of workers' compensation exclusivity is fraudulent concealment, where the employer actually knew there was a problem and tried to hide it because they didn't want to have to deal with it. Then you have all these theories of negligence, right? Negligent hiring is the one that we normally hear the most about, but you could have negligent supervision, negligent retention. You hired someone and then you kept them after you knew they were a problem. Negligent security. You knew there were security lapses and you didn't do anything about it. Then you have potential risk to third parties who just get swept up in the moment. I want you to remember too, before I close, workplace violence is often initiated as a result of domestic violence. Because think about it. If you have a domestic violence perpetrator, and let's say the victim gets a temporary restraining order or an injunction against them, they are living in a safe house. That perpetrator has no idea where they live or what they're doing, but they know where the victim works. So between 8 and 5 or 9 and 6 or whatever hours the employee works, that perpetrator knows where to find the victim. And one of the biggest mistakes we make in this area is we have this perspective that domestic violence is a personal issue. It is not. It spills over into the workplace with alarming frequency. So you cannot ignore domestic violence. And you have to train everyone in the workplace how to recognize domestic violence, the resources we can give to folks to help deal with it, whether it's your employee assistance program or a nonprofit you have in your community. But we cannot ignore domestic violence. That is a huge driver in this country of workplace violence. Now, the bottom line is here today that I want to make sure you understand a workplace violence prevention plan, just that document, what is often referred to as the WVPP, is not going to prevent workplace violence. It's not going to keep people safe. Prepared employees keep people safe. People who know your policy, your practice, your procedures, your protocols, they know what to do, they know where to go. That's what you need. Okay. Many of you know me through my work at Shaw Law Group, In addition to that work, Joe Beachford and I are co-founders of Employers Lawyer, which is a separate California employment law firm built around a very simple idea. Experienced employment law guidance should be practical, proactive, predictable, and affordable. Now, at Employers Lawyer, our mission is to help California employers prevent workplace problems before they become lawsuits by providing ongoing access to experienced employment law attorneys, Joe and me, practical resources, and timely guidance throughout the year. Every week, I'm going to focus on a feature of Employers Lawyer. And today's featured resource is Ella, E-L-L-A, our AI-powered California employment law assistant. And we actually refer to her as our Employers Lawyer legal assistant. That's where we get Ella. Ella is available around the clock to answer California employment law questions, explain legal concepts, and help employers think through workplace issues whenever they arise. And here's the deal. The only data she's working with is data that Joe and I have created. Ella does not go out to the website and randomly make stuff up the way some other AI tools do. The way our developer created Ella is that it is only fed information that we know is accurate. So when you go into Ella and you do a search, you get accurate information. Now, Employers Lawyer has 3 client levels. Some of you are already clients. You know the core begins at $100 a month. Premium is $300 a month, and it establishes an attorney-client relationship, live office hours, and one-on-one attorney strategy sessions, which are, of course, privileged. Our signature level is $600 a month and allows you to book one-on-one sessions with Joe or me, in addition to all of the other benefits. You can learn more about Employers Lawyer at employerslawyer.com and follow us on LinkedIn. Now, what's the practical action I want you to take this week? We're going to start having a practical action at the end of every podcast. I want you to pull out that workplace violence prevention plan, and I want you to ask yourself one question. If an employee reported a threat today, would every supervisor, every leader, every manager in your organization know what to do? If not, please schedule a refresher training this week. There's no minimum duration you have to spend on this training. It may only take 15 or 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes, but do it, okay? The safest workplaces are not the ones that never experience conflict, you guys. Conflict is, of course, going to happen. The safest workplaces are the ones that recognize problems early and respond thoughtfully before someone gets hurt. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. Go out, have a great day. Happy July. We're closer to the holidays, which I always love. And I'll see you all next week. Shaw Law Group, we solve workplace problems. Real-world guidance for real workplace decisions. The Workplace Wake Up podcast is produced for general educational and informational purposes only. The views expressed are those of the speakers and do not constitute legal advice or create an attorney-client relationship. The law is complex and constantly changing. Therefore, you should contact an employment lawyer in your jurisdiction for advice regarding your specific situation.